Wednesday, September the 4th. All right, guys, still the same week between cycles. We know exactly what we're going to do next cycle, but we'll keep that a secret for now. Even though we can kind of do whatever we want this week, we still have a little bit of posterior chain accessory work that we think that you might like, because today, one thing that's going to change kind of big time about what we have been doing is we're going to do some sumo deadlifts. Like, yes, we of course believe in the traditional deadlift, but we like a sumo deadlift to fit in as part of this posterior chain cycle, where you're really going to get a good squeeze of the posterior in there at heavier weights than what we've been able to do so far on Wednesdays this cycle. So it's just a sumo deadlift, which requires less range of motion, but a big old squeeze of your bottom in order to bring your hips forward. So if you're not sure what that is, just know it's called sumo for a reason. We get a wider stance, and it fits or stands to the reason that we would do that as a strength piece today, because the WOD then has something similar, sumo deadlift, kettlebell high pulls, which we've done before. And, you know, if you understand the mechanics of that, then you most certainly also understand, well, you maybe don't realize what it is, but you also understand the physics or mechanics of just a regular sumo deadlift. You don't have to bring it up to your shoulders. You just have to stand up the weight, just like any other traditional deadlift. Don't worry, when we start deadlifting next cycle, I don't know if I was supposed to say that. If we were to deadlift for strength proper in a cycle, again, it would be the traditional sort. The WOD today, 9 minutes of fury, 9 minutes of intensity, still breathing really heavy. 9 minutes AMRAP. It is 12 sumo deadlift high pulls, 6 push-ups, very manageable number of push-ups, followed by 12 kettlebell goblet lunges. That's 6 per side. Then 6 handstand push-ups, or, you know, by now most of you, unless you're new, have a preferred or progressed modification for your handstand push-ups, and we're going to stick with that today. For those of you who have handstand push-ups or have gotten decent at like singles or small sets, then the fact that this is 6 on a per round basis feels like an appropriate challenge that you have the time and the space to be able to go for it, assuming you're fine with having, you know, a lesser score as a result of it. But you could easily just knock out those 6 and say, I RX'd this one. How did it go for me? Well, let's say this. Strategically, you want to have a kettlebell where you're going to stand a chance of getting those kettlebell movements done unbroken. I did not get 5 rounds today. I was 2 reps short of 5. So that just shows you this is not a big rounder type of workout. So you don't want to, it already isn't a big rounder. So you don't want to bottleneck yourself on anything that isn't the handstand push-ups. And even then, we'd only want you to spend that time if you really got a vendetta against that movement. You're like, no, I'm doing all 6 here. And at which point, like, good, you go. Proud of you. All right, so my kettlebell movements were unbroken. You should definitely hope that 6 is a number that you can do push-ups unbroken. And then the thing you got to look for is the transition from lunges to handstand push-ups is a little bit of a doozy. There is a component of the lunge, particularly if you choose a challenging enough weight on that kettlebell, where the kettlebell stays up here, right? It stays up at your chest, which means you got to have some lift with your lats. It's time under tension is what it is. And that time under tension is spent or in the area that you're going to then need, the musculature that you're going to then need for the handstand push-ups. So I found that to be, I can do 6 handstand push-ups unbroken, but I needed a second. I needed more than a second. And they weren't the fastest either, because I was kind of unsure of how stable I could be, having just spent so much time with my stabilizers. Now, the kettlebell I used was a 70, right? I don't know if I'd recommend that for a lot of people, but I definitely would recommend you challenging yourself on these movements. Again, we'll use the framework of, if you can do 12 sumo deadlift high pulls unbroken with it, then it's an appropriate weight, even if it seems heavy. If you can do 6 per side goblet lunges with it, even if it seems heavy, you should do it. And then the next question is, yeah, I can do that unbroken, but can I do it for all 4, 5 rounds, however many we're going to do? let's set the score, the goal today at something like 3.5. I think that seems appropriate. Yeah, let's call it 3.5. And call it a day. All right, guys, enjoy.